Good morning to all. Before starting, participants, please note, for every session, the feedback link will be shared in the chat box and also in the WhatsApp group. Polling will be there during the session. So all participants are requested to submit their feedback and do polling without fail because these are the two constraints for getting your attendance. So today we have entered into the second day of 1 week FDP on tools and platform for technology-enabled learning. Accept your past without regret. Handle your present with confidence and face your future without fear. With these words, let me welcome you all to the session. The resource person for the session is Dr. Ram Kumar S., Chief Operating Officer, Center for Healthcare Entrepreneurship, IIT Hyderabad. He is a person with professional excellence. Let us have a glance through his professional highlights. He had been principal of leading top-ranked engineering colleges in Kerala. He was dean for UG and PG of various top-ranked engineering colleges in Kerala. He has an around 25 years of teaching experience, ranking from lecturer to professor of electronics at various institutions, including Tier 1 institution like NIT Calicut. He has published various research papers in subjects like optics, material science, and microelectronics. And regarding his education, he completed his BTech in electronics from REC Calicut. Now presently we call as MTech, and MTech in optoelectronics and laser technology from CUSAT. He took his PhD in transport properties of semiconducting thin films for solar cells from CUSAT. He is bundled with skills to explore in the digitally transformed space. On behalf of GWPTC Cortical family and the participants of TEL 2020, I invite you, sir, for this session, and I request you to take over the session.
Thank you. Welcome to the second day of the FDP in digitalization of education, as I would wish to call it. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Good. Yeah, good. At the outset, a few things. The discussion is prompted throughout the course of whatever I am trying to tell in less than an hour. So participants are encouraged to use the chat window, and if I don't see that, I request Mr. Sriraj to curate it for me and pass it on to me. If directly I don't get it in this window, please use the WhatsApp format also, so that I can take questions as I go along. Anybody who wishes to interrupt me can unmute, and please feel free to interrupt. With that, the first trigger, personal trigger, that something is wrong and something is changing fast outside the ecosystem where we belong to. And if you don't keep pace with the ecosystem, then the ecosystem will take hold of you. Was deeply instilled in my mind when during late 1970s, I happened to read one of the path-breaking work of the economist Alvin Toffler, namely Future Shock. So Future Shock set me thinking. I will not talk about Future Shock as such, but then it said it took 30 years for an innovation to come to grassroots level, the previous generation. Situated in the starting point of the third decade of 21st century, you cannot, such an innovation wouldn't flourish. We are so used to having instantaneous updates on anything at grassroots level. So that's the pace at which innovation and changes in the society have started reflecting on our daily lives. He followed it up with another beautiful work in, this was a 1970 book. He followed it up with a beautiful book. These are all must-read books. In 1918, namely The Future Shock. It talked about how the society is going to change. And in the third book, which I think is Power Shift, I'm not very clear about the title, it's a trilogy. He talks about the way information or information age, I think he's the first one who really coined the word information age, is going to change the way people think, people behave, and people progress. In 1990, the Harvard business professor, Clay Christensen, unfortunately, he is no more with us. He died at the age of 67 earlier this year. So Clay Christensen coined this beautiful term called disruption. Disruption is not a change. A change takes place within a framework of time. Disruption happens in a jiffy. Before you bat your eyelid, the change is there. So when changes happen at that phase, you don't call it a change. You don't get time to assimilate the change. You don't try to pave way for the change to happen to you. It happens. It takes you by your roots and shake you by your root, and the next day the change is there. So that's disruption. And he has warned that education is going to be deeply disrupted. For the last 10 years, I have been warning all my colleagues that education is going to be deeply disrupted. It's high time. There are a lot of, the environment is very much suitable. Even 10 years back was very much suitable for a transition. But unfortunately, the last to change, actually the first to change in the society should be the education sector. But unfortunately, there is a reversal and it's last to change. And we are all to blame for that. The ecosystem is very friendly, environment is very friendly, technology is very friendly for the change, but we are not accepting the change. So unfortunately, it took a pandemic to bring disruption to, unlike with respect to, as true for all other fields, to bring disruption to education also. It's deeply disrupted. It's deeply disrupted in a way that people never imagined. So it's high time. So it's good. It's an opportunity. I'm not talking about the evil side of pandemic, but pandemic has given us, the entire society, an opportunity to realign with the truth and look forward and chart out the trajectory for the next 50 years. So with that premises, let me start my next phase. Which is the whole world, the fabric of the whole world, as you see around, is continually being challenged by three different aspects. One is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN, which the target to achieve those Sustainable Development Goals is 2030. I wouldn't elaborate what they are, but this is very important for every educationalist. The second thing is the National Academy of Engineering in United States of America, which has charted out 14 grand challenges of the universe. Along with that, the 12 disruptive technologies which is actually changing the face of the world. So put together, engineered by the 12 disruptive technologies, challenged by the 14 grand challenges of the universe, and in a path to change the universe and make it sustainable, chartered by 17 Sustainable Development Goals, all facilitated by what is known as the Industrial Revolution 4.0. So you know about the history of Industrial Revolution, right from the steam engine to the electricity, to computerization, and to the era of data. Industrial Revolution 4.0 is relatively a new terminology coined a decade back. Why I am bringing in Industrial Revolution 4.0 is Industrial Revolution 4.0 is the fuel that is driving The 12 is driven by the 12, it is being driven by the 12 disruptive technologies. It takes on the 14 grand challenges of the universe in a mission to fulfill the 17 sustainable development goals of the UNESCO. What more should any university or any education system have in its definition to create manpower capable of functioning effectively, championing these causes, and taking the society to where the course is charted? So nowhere in the history of education has such a clear-cut set of environment and ecosystem being charted out as of now. And it would be very foolish on our part to stick on to the old stigma of doing things and blocking the way of an entire generation to champion these causes. So that brings us to the relevance of having this FDP. It's a beautiful concept, but all the talks that I have seen are centered around facilitation of this in a digitalized platform. My target is different with you today. I would really like to tell that unless you understand this concept, which I am trying to outline now, whatever you do in the rest of the FDP will not make sense. For one thing, for time immemorial that we know, immemorial means from your memory, my memory, the last 50 years of whatever I know and probably of what you know, teaching has always been synchronous. And teachers expect learning to be synchronous, but unfortunately, learning is not synchronous. Learning has always been asynchronous. If you look at it, learning has always been asynchronous. If learning has been synchronous with teaching, which is a very ideal case, then any kind of synchronous means synchronous does not even mean face to face. Synchronous means at the same time, happening at the same time. In a digitally separated world, it could be in different parts of the world. We are now in a synchronous meeting where the digital platform is helping us to see face to face, but we are all located in different parts of the world. Now, in a synchronous, if learning was synchronous, then at the end of my discourse, all the learners here would have captured the essence of everything and would have gone on with their lives. But we understand that it never happens. So teaching has always been synchronous and learning has always been asynchronous. Now it's high time to shed the notion of teaching synchronously. If you try to teach synchronously in an era that I have outlined so far, in the premises that I have created, which is disrupting the entire world, it is as if you are trying to put a currency note in front of your camera and taking an image of that and sending it across someone and saying that I have paid, instead of using an entirely digitally transformed payment system like the digital money or the digital wallet. Your UPI, I'm not even talking about bank transaction, your UPI, your Paytm, your Google Pay, or whatever is going to come in the future. So it is as obscene within quote as taking a currency and putting it in front of your camera and taking a picture of it and sending it to someone and saying that I have paid. Is the way we are if we are trying to relive the synchronous mode of teaching in a digital platform. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. You will struggle endlessly and the receiver will not receive it. That's a format that we are seeing across. That's a pain. The greatest pain point is trying to deliver some content synchronously in an old-fashioned, within quote, analog format into a digital platform and driving education. I'm very sorry to say that won't work. Now, when I say that, I will also tell that the whole process in which we are right now engaged is also not true. The next time I want to meet you, I don't want to meet you this way in a synchronous format. That's what I want to tell you. Learning does not happen that way because learning happens synchronously. Now, this is not new. coming to think of this, this is not new. Ever since my memory can trace back in time, I am aware of distant learning courses by all universities in graduate level and undergraduate level and graduate level. Very popular distant learning courses. Distance learning is an asynchronous mode. The teacher is not there. The modern form of distance learning, the modern digitized form of semi-digitized form of distance learning is what a beautifully coined terminology known as the flipped classroom. I'm sure that you have heard of the flipped classroom. Flipped classroom in very short form in a layman's language is where your classwork gets done at home and homework gets done in class. A very asynchronous mode. It's a very asynchronous mode. So it is a modern semi-digital form of distance learning. Was flipped classroom is a modern semi-digital form of the distance learning mode, where the teacher and the taught do not exist in the same frame of time. Material is sufficient material is given to the student to assimilate. The student assimilates it and comes back and meets within court meets the teacher, clarify issues, get a feedback on learning and proceed. So this creates the space for us to create truly digital platforms of learning in this era. If you look at the education scenario of the country, if you don't do that sooner or later, we will cease to exist. Because for the user or the consumer, it is like Nokia becoming history. It is like Kodak becoming history. The current educational system, as conceived by us, as perceived by the society, will cease to exist. The classic example is IIT Madras launching an entirely online undergrad program in programming. Okay, it has around 40 credit hours at 2,500 rupees. It is around 1 lakh. 1 lakh is the price of the course online. 3-year program. Your 3-year normal degree program is offered entirely online. Right now, there are 10,000 plus takers for that. And the enrollment is going to be 10 lakh. That's the target across the country. So when all institutions, and even before that, even before going to that, getting into this, certain IITs have started offering their final year programs as an online program for engineering students enrolled anywhere in the country. There is no face-to-face interaction. Face-to-face interaction, okay. I'll go one step backward. When government itself pioneered a program called Quality Enhancement in Engineering Education called QE-Cube, which is Quality Enhancement in Engineering Education, QE-Cube. QE-Cube is a set of courses offered by a network of IITs and aired via satellite in lieu of the classes that are happening inside the campus, where the role of the instructor who is offering the course locally is only to monitor that this course is being attended and do the tutorials and do the feedback and assessment session. So all this progressively has resulted in our own premier institutes leading the way in disrupting education. So that is the premises. I'll pause for a minute to take questions on this.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. Are you okay with the flipped classroom, or what is your suggestion in this current scenario?
I'm talking about that. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about what has to be done. From my point of view, in 30 years in academics, I have been flipping my classrooms for the last 10 years, so very successfully. So I don't have I don't have an issue with flipping the classroom, but then even flipped classroom is a bit primitive in terms of the technology that is available to us right now. That's what the crux of digitalization actually happens. The point I wish to stress is we as teachers should shed the idea that physically being present before a set of students and doing this synchronously is teaching. That makes no sense. We will cease to exist if a pandemic or not situation coming back to the old normal or new normal or whatever you call it. This is an opportunity to think about it, because worldwide this disruption will lead to. For example, I'll tell you the new education policy under the new this has already the last 10 years we have been debating on this. The new education policy allows for foreign institutes to set up shop in the country. In no time, this is going to disrupt the givers of education in the country, because you get quality education at a much cheaper price. That's how it's going to be. It's going to happen to begin with. So we need to understand. My point with the whole last 20 minutes I have spent, my point is to make you understand or make you start thinking that when you say that I'm a teacher, the idea that comes to your mind should not be the one who goes every morning to the class on a slotted hour, sees 60 students in front of them and delivers. No. I'll elaborate that once more on a different note also. I'll elaborate on why learning does not happen synchronously, and so teaching synchronously does not make any sense, because one thing, the human brain, even though I know when it's 20 minutes down the line, I have lost at least a percentage of the population who are there attending this. Even in a face-to-face engagement in a classroom of 60, the first 20 minutes, after the first 20 minutes, there is no, unless you are really trying to do some attention grabbers and shock the people out of, within quote, their slumber. The captivity range and the capture range and the attention range of the student, it's scientifically proven. It does not go beyond 20 minutes. And it peaks at around 10 minutes. So whatever you are trying to tell at 10 minutes, if it makes sense to the people around, sense in the sense they are connected, prerequisite is known, co-requisite is known, they are able to connect it, then something happens. Again, it is also scientifically proven. So that is one is attention span. Second thing, it is also scientifically proven that you retain and redo only 5% of what you hear, and 10% of what you see and hear, and 20% of what you see, hear, read, and write. So how foolish it is for us to engage a class of 1 hour with an attention span of, average attention span is much less than 20, on a peak attention span of 20 minutes, where whatever you try to do through this normal modes of teaching, which is because it's a broadcast, it's the easiest form of doing things. That's why we follow it. And we understand that whatever we are trying to is matched only in 20% at the best. And you want the student to do it, come back and do it the next day and recreate and create knowledge. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. The bane of all education systems that has done things like this is this. It doesn't happen. So learning, so that means that learning happens asynchronously, and two, learning happens is optimized. You retain and apply, and you are able to recollect, recall, recollect, apply, and do things on which at least 90% of what is supposed to be done if you are involved in learning, and that is by doing. If there is a hands-on involvement, the teacher writes the derivation on the board and student reads and copies it. It is done. If the teacher makes the student do the derivation in the class, 90% is. So learning has been asynchronous, one thing, and if you look at the way in which information is assimilated and recreated, we are able to, a human being is able to recreate 90% of what he has hands-on experience, rather than 20% of what he retains by seeing, listening, reading, and writing. So that's the premises. Before I go forward, I'll take questions. This is really shocking. If you seriously start thinking about this, this is really shocking. Can you just unmute and ask the question? My chat window is I'm actually working from a mobile.
Hello.
Sir.
Yeah.
ഹലോ കേൾക്കാവോ സാർ? സാർ, ഈ ഫ്ലിപ്പ് ക്ലാസ് റൂം നമ്മൾ അഡോപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴേക്കുള്ള ചലഞ്ചസ് ഏതൊക്കെയായിരിക്കും?
ഫ്ലിപ്പ് ക്ലാസ് റൂം മാത്രം പറഞ്ഞില്ല, ഫ്ലിപ്പ് ക്ലാസ് റൂമിന്റെ ഒരു മോഡേൺ വെർഷൻ ആണ് വേണ്ടത്. Not the flipped classroom the way it has been done so far. Flipped classroom in the digitally enabled ആയിട്ടുള്ള flipped classroom. You can coin some name for it, but don't be constrained by the, if you by using the terminology flip, don't be constrained by whatever is known to us as flipped classroom now. Okay, I'll come to that. I'll come to the challenges. But let us understand, my point is my first point is that learning is not synchronous. Learning has always been asynchronous. As teachers, let us realize that. And then synchronous mode of teaching. And second important factor, the word teaching does not exist. It's always learning. It's a community of learners. A community of learners who have walked the path before, and the community of learners who are following that. So there is no teaching. You are creating, it is a social construction of knowledge. What is more important is create platforms for social construction of knowledge. The old, within the old framework, the classroom, the ecosystem, the environment, whatever we do in terms of curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular, etc., to meet our the so-called program outcomes are all designed actually to create this. But unfortunately, the tools that we have handled and the kind of demands on the synchronicity has failed us. The solution space, that's the second half. A small glimpse of the solution space is the second half of my talk. How to present mathematical derivations. Okay, very good. This is something which I just happened. I don't have a chat window open on me. I just saw a question how to, I'll come to that. My question is other way. You are doing a mathematical derivation, especially if you are driving a mathematics class. It is almost always 60 minutes of discourse is a derivation, and the attention span is 20. Your student does not latch up. The student actually does not latch up at all. The way in which the blackboard has been copied at a distance of 10 feet. If you look at 10 different notebooks of backbenchers, then you will understand the variation. Writing in the classroom, your way of writing on the board, the attention span of the student, the moment student turns back to the board, it is written in some fashion. The idiosyncrasy of the teacher and using the board reflects, everything comes back and captured. Even if we are the best way out of this is to use the kind of smart boards and digitally reusable data that you create within the classroom, which is again an analog form of, it's not a complete quantized form. When in electronics, when you say digitization, you say you discretize in time and you discretize in amplitude. So you discretize here, when you transform into a completely digital mode of learning, then you need to do these discretizations. Very important. Okay, the moderator, can I go forward, or are there other questions pending?
So I can see only one question here, sir. So how can we make learning synchronous is one question. Then second question is, will the new education disrupt the country's present education system?
Will the new education system?
Will the new education disrupt the country's present education system? These are the two questions.
It is disruptive. And the answer to the second question is it is disruptive. It has to be disruptive. It has to be disruptive for the reason of not by the government's decision or the policy or politics of that. I'm not talking about that. I'm not getting into that space. I'm trying to tell of that's the premises I put. There are 12 disruptive. For example, if I look at when I joined Muthoot Engineering College, with all due respect to the people who set it up, one of the highlights was shown to me as I was taken on a tour. Was the machine shop where there were around 20 lathes. He said there is no engineering college in the state where there is 20 lathes. I laughed at him. I said, sir, you have spent unnecessarily. You don't, the current manufacturing technology does not require this. This in no time will become prehistoric by any standards, because in 2016, an entirely 3D printed rocket, a fully functional rocket engine has been launched from New Zealand. So additive manufacturing is not only just plasticine material. You have a lot of advances in material sciences, which is getting translated as materials which are conducive for additive manufacturing. So when the more and more materials are being discovered, more and more the kind of fabrication has changed. Manufacturing, you study this in the 8th semester probably as an advanced manufacturing technology in the UG curriculum of engineering across the country. The old order does not exist at all. The old order does not exist at all. That's the way the things have moved. That's the way technology has taken hold of. So you have 12 disruptive technologies. You have 14 grand challenges of the universe, and you have the society's demand on us, UN's demand on every country that we have to attain 17 sustainable development goal by 2030. All this fueled by the Industrial Revolution 4.0 is created an ecosystem which is going to disrupt education. I'm not talking about government. I'm talking about this framework which is going to disrupt education. Okay. There was another question. Sriraj, would you repeat that question?
So how can we make learning synchronous?
Learning should not be made synchronous, because human brain does not learn synchronously. We are not computers. We are not robots. That's the difference between robots and human being. Human brain takes its own, it's an associative memory, and it enhances itself by experience, by wisdom. That's what you call wisdom. So the entire learning process of human being is different from that of a machine. So it takes us time to assimilate. So there cannot be a synchronous learning human being unless genetic engineering research and results in such a generation somewhere down the line, not now. Learning always will be asynchronous. Learning always has been asynchronous, you think of it. You leave this classroom, you will forget what unless you come to a new environment where you really are, then your associative memory that you attended an FDP and say a few terms were thrown, and this is now being used, will strike, and then you will go back and recollect all fragments of information you have had and done. A student, on the other hand, is driven by, and the teacher running a course is driven by the within code time constraint.
Sir.
So the easiest way to manage time constraint is to spread it over the different amounts of time available offline. Yes, please.
Sir, in that case, this digital education will be better. That is, compared to the traditional class, student has, or we have the facility to record the things, and we can repeat the same thing that is taught in the class. Repeatedly hear the same thing.
It is definitely better, but not in the way you suggested. Recording ourselves and putting that to reuse is an analog format of digitization. Information is available in the web in a variety of forms that is very palatable. It's very palatable form. If you, for example, I'll tell you something. If you Google and find out, for example, you want to teach engineering graphics, there is an augmented tool for engineering graphics. There is a book authored for an augmented tool. You can use your mobile and use that book, and then you can actually, whatever you are trying to draw on 1 dimension or a 2 dimension on the board, actually becomes a 3-dimensional way of capturing that by the student. This is already available. Gamification. People always work. So one of the first forms of education is your snake and ladder. You keep playing at snake and ladder. You don't lose interest in playing snake and ladder. Why? Because you do not win. You lose, but when you lose, when you fall down, you always know that you can still play the dice and be there at the top. That keeps you driving. None of our education system has adopted later a plan that is equivalent to even a very small game like a snake and ladder game. I still can sit hours together on a snake and ladder game and play because it motivates. You climb up to some point, then you find that there is a logical fallacy in thinking, and whatever premises that we have brought about the subject, you fall down. You fall down strongly on the shoulders of an empire created by people, which is available free, almost free of cost in a digital world out there. Then you still start playing, and then you gain. You keep playing and you keep winning. You lose some, but then whenever you lose, you know that you can get up and run. Unfortunately, this has not been built into our system. Now, recording ourselves is a roundabout way of delivering a synchronicity in an asynchronous environment. Let us create knowledge. For example, so that's the second half of it. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we do a futuristic within code flipped classroom? Is information is available anywhere, anytime. Information is available for different kind of learners. A teacher, however good the teacher is, however good the teacher has understood the 60 different personalities that are sitting in front of them. 60 different personalities will actually amount to 16 personality types. This is recorded. You can also do a Myers-Briggs test online and find out what kind of personality you are. So if there is not a synchronous matching of personalities, there is a disorder. That's why certain students like certain teachers and certain students do not like certain teachers. This happens right from nursery days. So that is because you are of a different personality type. So there are 16 personality types and at least 6 different learner types. So this is genetically true. It's a biodiversity that is out of control of us. So a teacher who goes into the classroom every time is going to face this challenge. Now let us take that challenge out of the teacher, and different pathways of learning are always available and is digitally created and available for use and reuse without burning anything. For example, you are doing an experiment, you are doing a Kaplan turbine, or you are doing an induction motor. If there is a simulated experiment and a 3D experiment or an augmented reality experiment, I'm not even coming to virtual reality, an augmented reality experiment where the student plays around with theirs at 0 cost. You don't burn anything. You want to run it, the rated current is 8 ampere. You want to see what happens at 10 amperes. You want your lab instructor wouldn't allow you to go anywhere beyond 6 ampere. So you don't even see the flattening of the curve and see the worst case of design. Here you can do that. So different types of learners, whatever is palatable, different pathways of learning are available. The teacher's role now becomes a curator, like a curator of a museum, where the teacher puts together these pieces of information. So the challenge is not in classroom teaching. Challenge is in curating this information digitally available in a format that is disseminatable very easily. You can disseminate this very easily. So you look at platforms that enable you to disseminate this and curate this information easily and disseminate this information easily. All that you are going to see in the rest of the course, starting from yesterday and the rest of the course from after my lecture, are all tools that will enable you. But then let me tell you, these are tools almost a decade that originated almost a decade ahead of us. This time frame, at least a decade. You're looking at generating. So teachers then role becomes that of a beautiful curator. You don't have to reinvent it. There could be a beautiful explanation of a concept given as a do it yourself or a gamified form of a video snippet clip available somewhere. Teacher just have to give a direction, because what the teacher understands the curriculum, teacher understands the syllabus, teacher understands the learning expected, which is the student learning outcome, SLO of a student. When all these are defined, then curation becomes easy. You say you watch this or you read this pages from 48 to 53, skipping paragraphs X, Y, and Z. You highlight that and say you read this, and then we'll come back and test your understanding on your reading later. You take that reading and apply it, immediately apply it on a situation. You apply it on a case that is given to you. So you can really, you are giving a link for a video. I don't give a link for a video. I don't do that. I don't want to do that. I used to do that. I don't want to do that. I say you start looking at the first 3 minutes of the video, then skip. Now go to the 12th to 15th minute of the video, then read the end of it when he summarizes, and come back and answer these questions. So the learning is directed. Only the teacher can direct the learning. Otherwise, the student will start spending unwanted time wandering in the digital space. We don't want the student to do that. It's a very dangerous game. So you need to curate information, and there are tools available to you to curate the information. The beauty of it is most of the intellectual property created out there are free and open source. That's the beauty of it. Where do teachers come in? That I'll answer that question before I go ahead. Where do teachers come in? I'll talk about one. So that is where, when you said you will record your video, I'll come to that. There was the last comment was that I will record my video and make it available. So I'll come to that point. I remember the time when Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the MIT, made all their courseware available online for the first time. I was one of the first takers of that. So in olden days, when you start to go to the course and start to download, a disclaimer like window comes. Very, very interesting. It exhorts you to download whatever you want and use it wherever you want, in whatever form you want. But the challenge is you will never ever become an MIT graduate. Do you know why? Within court. The classroom experience, the MIT.
അവര് പറഞ്ഞ വെച്ചാല് പിന്നെ അവര് ഇതെല്ലാം കോഴിക്കോടും അവിടെ ഇവർക്ക് അയക്കണല്ലോ ഡോക്യുമെന്റ്.
The classroom environment where the experience sharing of the teacher happens, that is available only to the people who have registered for MIT courses. So there is a general experience and narration that you give on an online program that you have. But if you have an insight, that's only yours, and you spend it, you create a digital equivalent of that experience and make your student experience your experience with your insight and experience and your world. That's called the wisdom in the subject there. There can be a collective. In that form, there can be a collective. There are teachers in this network connected all over India. There could be a really real sparks of wisdom on different subjects available at different sources. Digitalization helps us to pull this together and make it available to the student, so that a different learner, different personality type can pick and choose that pathway of learning. There could be an abstract learner, a reflective learner, a concrete thinker. All of them with the different 16 personality types will pick and choose what is important to him and which is easily assimilable by him, and will do that. Okay. So curation of the within court, the class is, or what is the journey that you wish the student to undertake, is the most important role of the teacher. Learning will happen only asynchronously, in an asynchronous mode, in a digital platform. If you are not going to change to that, we will be lost soon. That's what I said. 10 years back, I've been saying this is going to happen. And unfortunately, that's what I said. It took us a pandemic. We were on the brink of disaster, but fortunately, a pandemic made it an opportunity for us rather than a disaster. the most important thing in learning is the assessment of learning, and we have been very poor at that. Digitization gives us a lot of flexibility in capturing the learning analytics and providing a social analytics also, which helps the student to probe things in the affective domain, and the student does not miss his classmates. So there is a social construction of knowledge and a social platform for exploration. That is again provided to us by technology. AR and VR, so for example, most of the companies in the recruitment, the recent platforms for recruitment are heavily AR, VR dependent, where the candidate is actually driven through an actual day in the life of a company. Candidate navigates through problem scenarios and case studies and actually does it there. And it's digitally captured, and the HR department and the technical team can really find out whether this candidate is suitable for you. Hiring has become So the point is, there are tools available to us which will beautifully help us capture the assessment part of it and give early warning to the student that the student is not progressing in the path. For example, there is a small Quizlet, a small test of understanding, a small comprehension that you can put 60 different type of things to trigger 60 different types of thinking persons in front of you, which is not possible in a single classroom. This is possible in a digital platform. As you build the course along, it's possible in a digital platform. The only thing is your preparation time. There is no delivery time. The preparation time is, instead of delivery time, the time gets absorbed in preparation time. But there are beautiful authoring tools that helps us to do this. For example, I don't have time to talk about that, actually demonstrate that tool. One of the popular tool which I would be using for starting my course. For example, this is more difficult. I have 18 fellows with me who will be onboarded on 1st of September, and they have to be taken to hospitals for clinical immersion. It's not even classrooms. They have to be taken to hospitals. So, it's not going to be possible physically. So I need to have a platform where I'm going to engage clinicians. I recreate operation theater scenarios, talk to patients, bystanders, pharma, or caregivers, hospital administration, everywhere, in all departments, to my 18 fellows in my current assignment. So I have to create a platform. And one of the ideal platform that I have stumbled across when I wanted to migrate from Moodle because of limitations of Moodle is a content authoring platform, which brings all kinds of content authoring under one window. There are around 36 different tools already embedded into that. This is again a product of a university, Pennsylvania State University, or known as Penn State University. It's called Hacks the Web, HAX, Headless Authorship Experience. It's called a Headless Authorship Experience, HAX. So if you search for Hacks the Web, it takes you through. I actually have created a tutorial which I will hacks created through Hacks for this. I will send a link across so that one of the research time you have, you can actually go through that and come back to me later in a digital way. We don't have to see face to face on that. Where the authoring of the content becomes very easy. You don't have to spend time looking at different corners and create and disseminate in whatever form you want. And this is integrated to any learning platform, paid or unpaid. This is integrated with Moodle. It is integrable with a lot of other platforms. The beauty of the development of this is that whereas CMS is a superset. So CMS can have an LMS incorporated into CMS, and this Hacks has been authored on the format of a CMS, which is a content management software. analytics these days, social analytics and learning analytics, which comes very handy. So you can actually track the student can track himself, the teacher can actually track the thought process of a student when the student is going through a course, and do a course correction much way early enough so that some of the what do you call patterns do not actually, wrong patterns do not actually creep in and set into the mindset of the student. It's possible. So most modern universities are using that. It is all, and for example, if you see, the tools are, some of the tools are very interesting. For example, GreatLakes.in is an Indian academy offering a master's program in data science in collaboration with University of Texas at Austin. If you, it's a 3 lakh or so program. It is after you. You register in this program, it is after you. If you have not seen a video, it will keep reminding you that there is a video content available to you and you have to see that. And if you go through the video has slider, but the video will not allow you to use the slider unless you complete the video in the pace of the video at least once. It is not like putting a YouTube channel where the student can just slide at the end of it. There is a flag raised because and see that the student has seen that content. No. Student cannot just browse through the content. Student has to patiently sit and read the content, and there are Quizlets in between popping up so that you cannot break away. So a clear progress of a student through a content. There are tools available. The point is there are tools available which will give you a clear trajectory of the student through the content as it goes. It's not even possible in a synchronous way. You don't do 60 students, you are not able to manage. You can do that only using analytics. So it is a beautiful emerging world out there. If you don't latch on to that at the earliest, the tsunami will hit you. Don't wait for that. Let us ride the crest of it and take it by the horns, and I wish that the Polytechnic teachers, this is one of the beautiful set of teachers I have seen, because I have been with you for the last past 1.5 to 2 years in your mission for outcome-based education. I know how proactive you are. You can challenge the status quo. You can challenge the status quo and create a beautiful platform and set example and start disrupting the education and take everybody along, all stakeholders along. And some of the beauty of it that you can order and deploy and disseminate content in very lightweight forms, which is not bandwidth intensive, throughput intensive, or data intensive. Which means that the current issues that the students state in terms, or parents state in terms of, or we state in terms of bandwidth, we state in terms of connectivity, they are all taken care of well. And learning happens only in small amounts. Learning does not happen in big quantum. Learning happens in very small steps. So it is for us to break digitally into very small steps, disseminate it, look at the progress, do analytics, give a feedback, carry the student along. I think that's it from me from the time I see the clock ticking 10:59. I think I'm almost at the end of my time. I can still take a few questions before we wind up and pay way for the next speaker. I can share the course on course authoring done using hacks on hacks. Sriraj, do we have questions?
The chat box, we are not having that much relevant questions. If any participant, if you want to add or if you want to ask any query, you can take a section. So please unmute your mic, and if you're having any queries, please free feel to ask.
Hello, Ramkumar sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So one main query that I'm having is that we have to prepare our students for this transition phase, because like us, they also.
Let me come back straight at you. They are much more adaptively governed generation. Leave it to them. Leave it to their devices. See, how do they latch on to a new game? So education is a game. You play a game with them. They will easily latch on. And it is very, very infectious. it is much more infectious than and much more effective than coronavirus. Okay. Then if you really create content that is really infectious, it will just take care of it by itself. Students will come asking for more. Come asking for more because that is what I said. If you record your own lectures and deliver it and ask them to be with you on a synchronous mode, they don't get things out of it. Their mind thinks faster than what we think. And the digitization, they're born with digitization. They can work with avatars, they can work with emojis, they can work with graphics in a way that our generation is far behind. Because they are born into that. They are born into that. Difference is only that they are born into that. That's a very important thing is how do you create content and latch them on.
It's true, sir. It's perfectly true. But we do have to look on this infrastructure and some deficiencies there, sir.
That's why I said, right now, see, Murphy's Law, I was talking to Sriraj. My laptop charger disrupt on a mobile, on a normal connection. So most of the things that you can do, your augmented reality can be done using a mobile. There are mobile tools on that. For example, if you look at EduValence, there is a Google Play Store online app, an app, not online. There is a Google Play Store app on engineering mechanics, which is an augmented reality thing. It's available for free. You may have to buy the book. That's all. Otherwise, the app is available for free. A lot of content has digitized content on a lightweight form is available. So it is much more cheaper than the infrastructure that we are maintaining currently. Let us understand that in terms of colleges, classrooms, labs, infrastructure, and all. And time is a beautiful infrastructure. We don't actually factor in at all. Now this becomes 24/7 by 365. Available time is 24/7 by 365 for learning. And there are very open source lightweight processes available for you to create content and students to engage. You don't have to have a high bandwidth, or you don't have to have whatever they normally use for 10 rupees recharge is enough for them. But instead of that, if you try to load a 25 MB YouTube video onto them, then you are right. Then you are right. If they let them play, see, if it's a downloadable app and a game they play on their mobile to learn, you don't require this. It's an offline process. That's how it happens. That's how it happens. So you need to. So the important point is to create content that is suitable for that. That's what I said. The most important tool for you is not the kind of the different kinds of. It's important, but what you need to understand is to create a digital content authoring tool all under one umbrella. You don't have to go between platforms. The beauty of HACS is that it integrates different platforms. You don't have to know these platforms. You can embed a YouTube video. You can embed a screencast. You can embed an audio. There are around 36 plus. Already available popular things embedded there. So you just can plug and play whatever content you want and create it in a format you want, in the size you want, and split it and use it. And then there is a lot of scope for developing small apps in which content is already downloadable with all these things, and student does not have to spend time or money or resources in engaging with the content online. The most of the infrastructure issue happens with the bandwidth connectivity. Too, there are a lot of students who are not even having. So you don't even need to have a high-end what do you call smartphone. You need to have a very basic smartphone to do it. You can always argue that okay, there are a lot of students, marginalized section of the society where this is not available, but that is where government and agencies will step in. Instead of spending it on crores of rupees on other infrastructure, which is actually going to be disrupted, it is better to spread it across the country using that. I think definitely steps will follow. Definitely step will follow. But looking at, and the next thing is when 5G comes, the whole scenario is going to still be simple. So let me tell you something. When the first time Escortel started its wireless mobile communication in the state, I was one of the first consumers, not because I had money, because it was 40 rupees a minute when they launched the program. Then it became 32, then it became 16. I started using it when it became 8. Now you don't look at your mobile bills that way. So when it started, it was that. So prices are falling. Falling, spectrum is increasing. You have the option of 5G coming in, and there will be packages for educational and as well as students. That will definitely come, because that's where businesses. If you look at it in the outer spectrum of it, that's where the new businesses. People are going to support that. For example, instead of textbooks, you will have this. You will have tablets, phablets, connectivity, and those kinds of things will come in.
So we are having another question. When we go to the digitalization in education, what are the things we take care, like copyright, privacy, footprint, etc.?
Okay, it's a wonderful question. So that's what I said. Most of the content available out there are licensed under Creative Commons. Educational content. You have a problem only if you're trying to make a business out of it. If it is only for the content is used only for you, just need to acknowledge it. Just like you acknowledge content that is drawn from different sources, you just need to acknowledge you are taking it from this and such source. The rest of it is a paid version that you even now do. If you're going to get in, if you have a YouTube video, that is always accessible, and if you have plagiarized, it is known. If you are using a slide of some other university without acknowledging, that's also a fringe violation. So violation exists if you are really careful about that. If you really want to do that, the point number one which I want to say is that people who walk the road ahead of us are so magnanimous that they don't want us to reinvent the wheel. So the content is mostly available for recycling and reuse and refurbishing. Magnanimity of people who have done it. That's why open source survives.
Sir, which is the better blended learning or flipped classroom?
If you think that blended is bringing students back into classrooms and into the digital space, I for one, personally, this is very, very close personal opinion, believe that the classroom scenario days are over. Classroom is for gratification. Classroom you put together for a social gratification, no longer for an educational gratification, because there is a space available in the digital domain to do that. Capture it in a much better way, do analytics for it in a much better way. You need to reassure the students, you need to see, there's a hand-holding thing which has not been digitally recreated yet, but soon it will happen. Sooner or later it will happen. But then I still believe that blended is something new. For me, blended is right now is disruption. It's complete disruption. When the old analog format actually goes away, like I said, see, we don't realize this. There are around 7 connected devices per human being in 2020. By 2025, the connected devices is to be of the range of 20 to 25. And the data that is spewed out digitally is of the order of zettabytes. In 2015, you had 8 zettabytes of data out there, which is equivalent to before 2015, 5,000 years of data created by humanity was created in 1 year. So this is happening in the digital domain. Manufacturing has shifted from, you talk about you can't do manufacturing. Manufacturing has shifted from conventional overall and greasy workers to a digital twin, where it is created digitally in a parallel platform, simulated, checked, and every component is downloaded via wireless into IoT, through IoT through compatible OS into machines that are ready for that. It's happening. It's happening across the world. Everything, including art, let me say, including art and literature. Every form is emerging out of into that space. If Wordsworth wrote, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats or high or waits and feels, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils now, he would have written, I wandered lonely on a drone that floats or high over. That would be the changing scenario. You are not losing anything. The new generation is latched onto that. Don't forget that. Yeah, please.
What about the project-based learning?
Fantastic. Project-based learning can happen in the digital domain. That's what I said. All these problem-based, project-based, collaborative, social construction of knowledge happens in a truly digital platform. It has to happen in a truly digital platform. It has to happen. It is already there. But see, in industry, when people do projects, people are in different teams. They don't even see each other. How in the times of lockdown, how did industry work? How did manufacturing sector work? They are working from home, but they have beautiful digitized project management tools they are used to. So they know what is the status of what at which project and which part is done up to what amount and what is to be pitched in is all known. So people collaborate and contribute and do the roles. There are flags to be raised. There are administrative dashboards which tell you what is done and what is not done. It's already there.
Sir, let me ask one thing.
Oh yeah.
Sir, so at the present condition, actually, the students have got the main role because teachers are just curators, as you told. So the learning process,
the primary onus on learning lies on the student always.
Yeah. And now it has become more important. So but it's difficult for the students to get aligned to the current situation, right? It has become a challenge for teachers to align the students actually.
Exactly. This is again a follow-up of the answer that I gave you earlier. Students are not, understand this, students are not used to the older format. That's not where their generation is born in. See, നമ്മൾ സ്കൂളിലും കോളേജുകളിൽ വരുമ്പോഴാണ് ഈ മൊബൈലുകൾ നമ്മൾ ബാൻ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. കുട്ടികൾ ജനിച്ച് വീഴുന്നത് മൊബൈലിൽ നിന്നാണ്. ഡിജിറ്റൽ ഡാറ്റ യൂസ് ചെയ്ത്, ഡിജിറ്റൽ ടൂൾസ് യൂസ് ചെയ്ത്, ആ മൊബൈലുള്ള ആപ്സ് യൂസ് ചെയ്ത് പഠിച്ച് വരുന്ന ആൾക്കാരാണ്. There was an Airtel ad, I think it's an Airtel ad when the Pungi son seems to be very lazy, is always on the couch. In an older language, it's called a couch potato. He's always in his device. His older dad tells him, pay electricity bill. He's not moving out. So after some time, he goes, where is the electricity bill? I think you have seen this ad, right? It is being done, paid. On a click of a button, it is done. We do it now. What I mean to say that actually the student is oriented to that. We don't feed enough for the student in that platform. That's a problem. The mismatch happens because the student does not get an engaging, interesting content in that format. You are forcing the student to use the digital platform and draw the drawing in an analog way. That doesn't work. That takes it away. They don't understand that. For example, I'll tell you, എൻ്റെ ചെറുപ്പകാലത്ത് ഒരു ഞാൻ ട്രെയിനിങ് പ്രോഗ്രാമാണ്. പ്രേമഗാനങ്ങളിൽ ജയചന്ദ്രൻ പാടിയ ഒരു ഗാനം, പൂർണ്ണേന്ദു മുഖിയോട് അമ്പലത്തിൽ വെച്ച് പൂജിച്ച ചന്ദനം ഞാൻ ചോദിച്ചു, കൺമണി അത് കേട്ട് നാണിച്ചു കാൽവിരൽ കൊണ്ടൊരു വര വരച്ചു. Do you think a 21st century born kid is going to understand the nuances of this? Is it going to excite him? It is not. So if you force him to learn that and saying that is traditional, that does not happen. That connect will not happen. That's exactly സംഭവിക്കുന്നത്. ആ കണക്ട് ഉണ്ടാവില്ല. It is a new normal. It is their world and it is a future. So നമ്മൾ സ്ട്രോങ് ഗാർഡിയൻസ് ഓഫ് ദ പാസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട്, മോണുമെന്റ്സ് ആയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ കരുതിയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ഇങ്ങനെ അതിനെ പിടിച്ചു നിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ it is all right for us to do that because probably we are aligned to that, but when they are not aligned to that, So don't stand in their way of learning. I have realized that. I realized it bitterly because as a teacher, it's a very disruptive, bitter process to go through this. I understand that. And then I experience and sharing. You realize that, then not being able to do that, that's more painful. You realize that that is the world, and then not being able to do that is more, it's more of a pain. Fortunately, I started the toolkits, analog format toolkits. So it had to be very painful for me to curate that and send it across and make it palatable. But by the time I was about to come out of the academic sector the way I used to flourish, then most of the things have been translated into beautiful tools there. EdTech is one of the leading industry in the world now. So there is an EdTech space for an EdTech industry because there is a huge possibility in digitalization, not on an analog platform. In that case, all platforms are there. There's a huge space still available for digitalization, and products are coming every day. So our curation is to make the current generation engage with the current in the current format. Then they will get engaged. They'll surely get engaged. Don't think that smart allathavaralla. You challenge them to that, they will definitely do that. They'll definitely do that.
Okay, sir. Sir, but where case exams serious and examination it was something serious.
Very good, very good. I'll come to that. What purpose does these exams serve? Every day they are fed with success stories in the world where recruitment is without degrees. You prove your skill. There are you say how is the digital media. You leave your signature all around you. So I tell my students, whatever you post, whatever you like, whatever you share, shows what character you are. A data engine, analytics engine will definitely for the future employer will not see you face to face. Will look around for your footprints in the digital media and understand what kind of person you are and see whether you are fit into their organizational culture. That's how recruitment happens. So, do you have a digital signature in a GitHub? Have you published white paper on your collaboration? That is where recruitment or their career starts. Not their degrees. They are very much aware. They are very much aware about the trophies. They are going through this process because we elders are forcefully making them learn by rote for end semester examination, and they know that they are not doing anything creatively. Their 5 C's are not checked. Is there a complex problem solving? Is it a critical thinking? Is there a creativity involved? Is there a collaboration involved? Is there a communication involved? Whatever is available digitally as data, it need not be by-hearted. For example, my brother used to know the tables of 16. It will be impossible and almost immaterial asking somebody to do that. That's നമ്മുടെ പ്രായത്തിൽ നമ്മുടെ ബ്രെയിനിലെ വയറിംഗ് കണക്ടിവിറ്റിക്ക് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ അത് ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന് നമ്മൾ ആർഗ്യൂ ചെയ്യണമെങ്കിൽ there are a lot of things on the digital domain which builds the same kind of connectivity. They play a game, interesting Sudoku game or whatever, a puzzle that you give them, or even do a PUBG. There is learning in that. A lot of things get wired when they do that in that domain. I know the tools are already one. You don't have to waste your space in the time and space in your learning by rote memory by keeping all those things. When it's disrupted, including examination and assessment system will be disrupted because as you grow, pay as you use is a kind of analytics as you go along will give a feedback on where a student stands with respect to understanding a particular content in a far more objective and granular way than ever was possible by doing any kind of examination we are used to so far. And that is a new age emerging. So we need to look at that also. We need to look at that also. If this is going to be a zero academic year, it's high time for the force. The force is the teachers like us to sit together and recreate, rethink, and create a new environment for real progressive assessment. because the whole world is changing towards that.
So we can just take one more question and just wind it up. I will I will just mix the two questions together. In one question, one question it is being asked that how can we take care of the co-curricular activity, human values, personality developments.
Very good, very good. Wonderful,
And the other thing is that how can we ensure that the students meet the quality of the certificate?
I'll answer the second question first. That is where the modern digital technique gives you, as I said, assess as you go along is there. So if you use those tools, you cannot hoodwink you. There cannot be a proxy happening in that space. It is very objective. There cannot be a proxy happening in that space. That's time proven. That has been in existence across in other worlds. There are what are called proctored exams are there where you cannot just copy, or even Google and search and cut and paste. There are a lot of techniques available in the digital space, very much more in a way much more that are easily manageable than the conventional techniques. That's one. Our first question is a beautiful question, very beautiful. How did we manage during lockdown? So this is not only a polytechnic teacher student or engineering teacher students. The whole world was shut down in their homes, and this is one impact people have been studying. How it has disrupted the normal, because we are social animals. So there could be a new way of a new normal and a new way of socialization. That's one thing. How people socialize. Two. Values can be created. Values can be created even without even in a digital platform, in a digital engagement. If you are honest, are you a person with it? What is your kind of work culture? Are you so all those, whatever is the set of values that you want to promote, okay, those values can be promoted digitally in each of every course, also every part of every course. In fact, I have put together what is known as a 10 dimensions that are required for an engineer or a human being to survive in the modern world, in the industry 4.0. So education, I have coined what should happen in education 4.0 and how we should meet it. So I have put it down, finally filtered it down to 60 plus attributes, and that list is growing. The challenge is now to how to incorporate each of these 60 in your day-to-day activity in the digital space. It's possible. Many of them are possible, and new normals are emerging, and many of them are possible. Also, let us now, when you come to that, also let us go back a few years back and start thinking at having robots as your co-worker. It's already there. A human-machine interface in interacting with a machine in front of that. HMI is one of the researches that happens worldwide. I'm talking about a human-machine interface when that is when you are engaging with a machine on the other side like a computer. I'm talking about a co-worker who is not a human. So that is the space into which they are going. So how do we manage our value system and our social systems and interaction system when you want to dance with a robot, when you want to talk with a robot, when you want to love a robot? So new things will keep emerging in those dimensions. That's the way the world is growing. So it will happen. It will happen. It will have a new value system probably, but happen. Definitely happen. And there are possibly very good social digital media for social convergence. I know of institutions which have done Kalolsavam online in the lockdown period. That happens. It can happen. So people are creative enough to do that. I have my next generation nephews and nieces spread all over the world, putting a skit together, putting a dance together, and enjoying in the digital space in times of lockdown. It is happening. and platforms are being developed for that. So Zoom has a limitation, WebEx has a limitation. These are not platforms meant for those kind of activities. So there is a new space for business to evolve in those dimensions, taking care of these dimensions also. It will happen.
So, okay. Thank you, sir. Now I pass on to Nishamis to wind up today's Ram session.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Ramkumar, sir, for a very informative session. For feedback session, first I invite Ms. Shabira TP, lecturer in computer engineering, GPTC Tirurangadi, to give a feedback of the session.
Hi all. Hear me?
Oh yes.
Okay. And team G. As we all know, Ramkumar sir is great. I attend Ramkumar, I get some great takeaways. And for today, I think I got one thing, that is teacher as a curator. That is a great thing he communicated with us, and along with many other great thoughts. This one is most valuable for me. I think so what makes a great teacher is how we curate things. If we are not in pace with this changes, that is this kind of this field. So to be a great teacher, we must be in pace with this technology things, whether it is an classroom teaching or it is an online teaching. In both these cases, we must adapt to the technology, and we must be a great curator to be the greatest teacher. So I thank, on behalf of this team, I thank Ramkumar sir for an enlightening talk on this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. Next, I invite Mr. Harish Chandran, lecturer in mechanical engineering, GPTC Adur, to share his words regarding this session.
Good morning, all. Am I audible?
Oh yeah, you are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So regarding this session, the information shared in the session was interesting, and the discussion was very clear and informative. And Ramkumar sir opened a window to think the teaching in different way. And I thank Ramkumar sir for delivering such a fabulous session. And I am just thank WPTC Kottakkal for including such a fabulous session in this 5-day FDP program. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your good words. Next, I invite Ulkar sir to give a vote of thanks.
Okay, good morning, sir. On behalf of Government Women's Polytechnic College Kottakkal and the entire participants of this session, I extend my thanks to Dr. Ramkumar sir for sharing up with your finding, opinion, and insights on digitalization in collegiate education. We are all inspired by your great words, sir. Your session was really thought-provoking and brainstorming, actually. Thank you, sir. Thank you, really.
Thank you, Ulkar sir.